Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. My name is Faith Hunter, and delighted that you are joining me for another episode of Spiritually Fly Sunday of the Word. Today's session is all about communicating with family. As we all know, we are in the middle of this holiday season, and many of us will be visiting and connecting possibly with family that we don't see very often. Some of us are going and returning to our family homes, or people are coming to our homes, meaning our family members are coming to visit us in our homes. Regardless of the situation of how you're meeting with them, if you're only going for the day or if you're going for an extended period of time or connecting for an extended period of time, it can be extremely challenging. It can be sometimes really triggering, and that's what I want to talk about today. Throughout, I would probably say over the past couple of months, I've been talking about boundaries and how important it is to set personal boundaries, especially when it comes to family. Because what happens when we are especially dealing with our elders, right? We love our elders, but if they are individuals that raised us or we were around them, they have their truth, their standards, their way of doing and the way that they believe. But they also have this vision and image of you and how you should behave, right? But now you're an adult, right? You've been adulting for a hot minute, and you have your way of being. You have your way of living your life. And it's really important for you to, what I like to say a lot, and what is in my book, stand in your truth. So again, these Spiritually Fly Session Sundays are based on my book, Spiritually Fly, and Sutra 2, which is chapter 2, is stand in your truth. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying you have to stake, your claim on everything, and, what you say is the word, right? Or is the truth. Your truth is authentic to you. Their truth is authentic to them. However, it is important if you are triggered, right? If you get into an argument, that you don't climb back into that 5-year-old, 6-year-old self and coward. Because what will happen is that you cowarding, you pulling back, you not speaking up for yourself can, as we all know, create pain and disease. I'll say that one more time. The dis-ease in the physical body, the dis-ease in the mental body, and most importantly, the dis-ease in the emotional body. So in my book, I do provide a couple of tips on just dialogue and communication and how you can stand in your truth without yelling and screaming and having the cops show up. I mean, we don't want that drama, right? How you can stand in your truth and be honest and truthful about what you are feeling. And I always say that when you are having a conversation, if you decide to create a conversation, right? You want to discuss something that's been on your heart during this time. You want to make sure that you're doing it from a very grounded place. So give yourself a couple of deep breaths before you drop into that conversation. Make sure that timing is right. Yeah, so if it is a conversation that requires privacy, make sure that you take that individual to the side at an appropriate time and let them know. And sometimes it's nice to give them a quick little warning. Hey, I want to have a conversation with you about something that's really been sitting on my heart. And then let's craft some time to do this over the holidays, because, I just want our time together to be fruitful and positive, and I just don't want this sitting on my heart anymore. And then when the conversation happens, again, speaking your truth and also giving them space to share. So I'm going to go on and drop into a little read. This is actually, I'm going to pull a couple of little phrases and statements from the ending part of this chapter because the ending kind of summarizes this beautifully. So I'm reading now from page 54, and the first statement in the closing of this particular chapter reads, "Standing in your truth takes love, bravery, and compassion, not just for yourself, but for the darkest moments of your life." And so when I mentioned when you have these conversations or you get into a difficult dialogue with one of your family members, what happens is that we go back into that tiny little youth that we were, right? That tiny self. And we lose our bravery to speak our truth. Instead of speaking our truth, we kind of dance around it, or we just comply like we were 5 or 6 years old. So, standing in your truth takes love, bravery, and compassion, not just for yourself, but for the darkest moments in your life. Okay, I'm going to jump right over to the next page, page 54, and then I'm going to list some of those tips and techniques here. The paragraph, or this section ends with, "Before we transition into the next chapter, I want to leave you with a few final tools. These are my daily acts of honesty." And these acts of honesty are the things that I try to use when I'm communicating with family members, friends, anyone I want to have a difficult conversation with. These are my daily acts of honesty. They serve as simple methods of dealing with all that shows up when we feel the old stories of shame and guilt move into the conscious mind. These are very basic acts. These very basic acts will shift your perspective on how you deliver the truth and how you communicate your needs, wants, and desires from a place of honesty. They will help you to feel more secure about your thoughts and your words. So, these are the basic daily acts of honesty. The first one, be thoughtful and mindful of the words you speak, both verbally and written. Take your time when you're writing texts or emails, especially when you are upset or triggered. Pause, breathe, pause again, review, and then send. If you are really heated, I recommend giving yourself at least an hour before sending. Next, state your truths clearly, mindfully, and with intention. If your words could potentially cause harm to another, think about how you can maintain a high level of honesty fused with compassion. Tact is everything. So if you know your truth can potentially harm someone else, that's okay. Just make sure that you are doing it from a place of compassion, but still speak that truth. Next, when you are really upset or trapped in a situation, try your best not to react. So that's why I said before you go into the conversation, give yourself a moment to ground, to pause, take a couple of deep breaths. And so when they start speaking, you're not like, boom, reacting. Because a lot of times when we are communicating with people, we aren't listening. And because we aren't listening, we pick up on tiny little words. Those words trigger us. We're thinking about what we're going to say next. And then as a result, we react. So again, I'm going to repeat that. When you're really upset or trapped in a situation, try your best not to react. It is okay to be angry, and you don't need to hide what you are feeling. But try to respond with purpose, clarity, honesty, and grace. The next one. Don't feel guilty after you speak your truth. So actually yesterday I was having a conversation with a friend, and this particular point came up. She had shared something with someone. She had basically set a boundary, and she was feeling extremely guilty about setting that boundary. And a lot of it was because other people were like, well, maybe you need to have a conversation with that person. Maybe you need to talk to them. You know, you should definitely not cut them off. But I'm like, you shouldn't feel guilty. If you feel like that person was causing you emotional harm and making you feel uncomfortable, you have to set the harshest boundary of cutting them off. And maybe it's temporary, maybe it's forever, but that's something you have to do, and you can't compromise that, nor feel guilty about that. Accept the consequences of hearing and sharing the truth. So again, when you're having a conversation with someone and you are offering up what may be troubling you, and then it's a conversation, so that means that they will probably share some of their thoughts, and their thoughts may like hit you in a really tough place. It's okay, right? You are not living in their shoes. You're not living their life. So you have no idea what they are going through. All you have to do is stand for what you know, speak your heart, speak your place, speak from your place of honesty, hear what they have to say with understanding and compassion, and it is okay if you both step away without agreeing with each other. If you were in full disagreement when you stepped away, that is okay. So I'll read that one more time. Accept the consequences of hearing and sharing the truth. Trust me, it may hurt initially, but in the long run, you will feel better. So even if someone shares something, so for example, you share your truth, then they offer up truth, and then there's not an agreement. And then that person says, well, you know what? I'm going to have to step away from this friendship, or I'm not going to be able to be around you as much. And maybe that's not what you wanted, especially if it's like a romantic relationship. That could really happen. And it's okay. You'll be all right. Yeah? I just had a thought. Especially when I mentioned the romantic relationship, you know, Venus is going into retrograde. So this is really helpful too. Some of these conversations may be coming up, and when things are going in retrograde, it's pulling things from the darkness, from what's in the shadows, bringing it forward. So just be mindful of that. And then the last one, be honest with yourself. So again, some of those are my just personal tips. These tips that I listed are in my book, Spiritually Fly. They're in chapter 2, which is Sutra 2, Stand in Your Truth. And hopefully these tips will assist you as you move into the holidays, communicating with family, connecting with friends, connecting with your lover, right? Just know that regardless of the situation, regardless of the dialogue that is happening between you and the other person, you have to speak from your heart. You can't coward. You can't drop into that 5 or 6-year-old self and feel ashamed of sharing your thoughts and your feelings. Do it with power and strength. Do it with grace and tact. And even as you share, give the other person an opportunity to speak, and know that it is okay to step away with the boundary set, a relationship severed, or if it's great, ended with a hug and an amazing kiss. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me here for another Spiritually Fly Sunday. The Word. Again, all of these tips are in the book, Spiritually Fly. If you go to my IG bio link, you can find a link to the book. So if you don't have it, baby, you need to grab it. It's way more than yoga. It's a bunch of lifestyle, transformational stuff up in that baby. So thank you again, everybody. Have a beautiful, blessed Sunday. Ciao.